Welcome to episode 5 of the 6 M's of Manufacturing podcast. I'm your host, Adrienne Temple. Did you know that July is National Ice Cream Month? What an auspicious occasion to celebrate by interviewing Jennifer Randall Collins, CEO of Proof Alcohol Ice Cream, located in Columbia, South Carolina. Grab a spoon and let's dig into this sweet and spirited episode. Well, thank you, Jennifer, for joining me for this episode. I'm really excited to kind of go through a little bit more about Proof Alcohol Ice Cream. Really glad you could join me today.
Well, thank you, Adrienne. I'm honored and humbled to participate, and thank you for sharing a platform where we can share our journey and our story.
Yeah, absolutely. So with that, I'd really like to just jump into it a little bit. I know some of the people that might be listening to this podcast may or may not already be familiar with your brand. So I want to give you that chance to kind of talk a little more about the brand itself and your products that you currently have available.
Yeah, so Proof hard ice cream it contains regulated alcohol levels, and we're one of the only brands in the space to have regulated levels of alcohol in our product. And our manufacturing facility is located in Columbia, South Carolina, and we ship out daily. We manufacture product in-house in Columbia, South Carolina, ship that out daily to wholesalers and retailers in the Southeast, and as well as the Midwest and California as well.
Well, awesome. Can you mention some of the flavor combinations that you guys have? I think that's always an interesting component of your product offerings. What are some of the ones that you currently feature right now?
Absolutely. So we have 5 core flavors that are currently in production and in retail, and those are bourbon caramel, mocha chocolate, cheesecake, a strawberry, and then a coconut rum that's very popular during the summer, as you can imagine. And then we also have rotating seasonals depending upon the season. So, for instance, during what we call OND, which is October, November, December in the alcohol business, we roll out flavors such as pumpkin spice, which is actually very nice, and apple pie, as well as peppermint hard ice cream in the month of December.
Yeah, you got to have the pumpkin flavor, right, in the fall and everything that you do, right?
You do. And, the irony of that, I'm not a big, me personally, I'm not a big pumpkin pie fan, but this ice cream is absolutely amazing. The way the flavors meld together. And it reminds me more of a pumpkin cheesecake.
Really? That sounds really awesome. I'll be excited to see that one come around. Now you launched that around that October timeframe when all the pumpkin spice with Starbucks and some of those others come out.
That's exactly it, and that's when I was looking at our seasonal flavors, look a lot to what Starbucks does. We don't need to recreate the wheel here, but following and looking at Starbucks different expressions with their lattes and other coffees has been actually quite helpful.
Yeah, that's awesome. So tell me a little bit, kind of going back to, you're located in Columbia, that's where you're manufacturing currently. What kind of brought you to South Carolina? So more of the origin story of how this even got started and what brought you to South Carolina to choose to manufacture this product.
Absolutely, Adrienne. So I'm originally from Kentucky, and in Kentucky we're known for 3 things. It's bourbon, basketball, and horse racing, which all 3 that I enjoy dearly. And growing up in Kentucky with a bit of a gritty upbringing, had God-given ability in the form of athleticism that I was able to parlay that into a basketball scholarship, and pretty heavily recruited out of high school. I was very fortunate in that regard, and ended up choosing the University of South Carolina to continue my education and basketball career. So developing those skill sets, certainly at the University of South Carolina, helps me in my day-to-day job as the CEO of Proof. Went after graduation, went back home, got married, and had two beautiful children that are also helping in the business to this day to some extent, and then ended up having an opportunity to get involved in this alcohol ice cream industry back in 2014. Spent a lot of time researching the alcohol industry to understand how we would license and be permitted to sell our product. And South Carolina popped up as a very friendly state, certainly from a manufacturing perspective. So relocated from Kentucky to South Carolina, to Columbia, South Carolina, and launched our first iteration in 2015 with a proof of concept.
So getting started, and I mean the alcohol ice cream, that's a very niche market, is it not? I mean, that's not very well known. That's not something that has a lot of people in the space currently, or at least at the time when you first started. Is that correct?
It did not. Yeah, there was nobody. It's interesting because I know, at least growing up in Kentucky, bourbon is infused into a lot of foods, not just ice cream. There's bread pudding, marinades, things of that nature. So I guess in my head, why not ice cream? But going back during that time, we're creating this market category right now. And when you look at the gourmet food industry, that's $1 billion industry. So we're creating, while it's a bit of a niche market, it's a really big niche. So we feel, we're very optimistic on our ability to scale and grow this product, certainly domestically as well as internationally.
Well, when you first started, I think I met you pretty early in that phase. This dates back a good ways now. Time flies when you're having
Yeah.
fun. Um, so when you really started, I mean, you were, I mean, really being innovative just in your distribution process and trying to get it out into the marketplace. And at that time, it was a lot more on, I know, restaurants at that time. And were you in some of the store locations at that time in the early years, or did that kind
No,
of come over
actually,
time?
no, that's a great question. So did the proof of concept initially, and Adrian, I think I met you in 2015 when we were off of Shop Road in a
Yes.
very, very small facility. And I was not making ice cream, but I was certainly driving around to the retailers and doing the proof of concept, out of the back of my out of the back of a Jeep. So where we've gone from 2015 to where we are today is just absolutely amazing. And the initial focus was on the restaurant industry a bit, as well as some of the independent retailers. And one of the first big breaks came with Total Wine and More, as an alcohol retailer carrying our product in state. And our second big break actually came with Lowe's Foods in right before COVID, late 2019, early 2020. So the growth that we've seen with the quality of retailers has just been exponential, and very, very fortunate.
What are some of the things? Because we have a lot of, I would say, South Carolina is really rich in just the entrepreneurial spirit of a lot of folks here. I mean, there's a lot of people that are, kind of bootstrapping their own businesses and getting started, and it may actually put them in the food retail space when you think about, again, sauces, jams, things like that as well. When you look at just trying to break into that retail space, I mean, what are some of the things that when you got started, maybe you weren't aware you were going to encounter, or the requirements that would be there, or maybe what some of the barriers are in general? I think it'd just be good education for a lot of people that are looking at trying to grow their business in that sort of food retail space, especially with like grocers and things like that. Any thoughts there? Things that you were kind of aha moments for you that presented some challenges trying to operate and grow in that space?
Yeah, I think it comes down to communication and trust, whether it's internally with your team or externally when you're dealing with retailers, and having the ability to listen to the retailers on what their consumers want. So really a heavy focus on the consumer experience with our product or another CPG product has been a real key point for us. And then, of course, I mean, going back to the manufacturing side, having all of your GMPs in place, your systems and processes, all the things that we know about in manufacturing have been absolutely critical. And my other big one is having a phenomenal partner. Adrian, as you know, when you mentioned the entrepreneurial community, Dirk Brown, I would hope immediately comes to everybody's mind. Dirk is my business partner, but he gives a lot back to the entrepreneurial community here in South Carolina, and I think has been one of the leading voices for the state of South Carolina as it relates to entrepreneurship, whether in the CPG space, tech space, or otherwise.
Yeah, and Dirk he's involved with USC as well, University of South Carolina as well, correct? And some of that, in that
Yeah,
entrepreneurial space, right? So very experienced in
yeah,
that area.
exactly. Yeah, it's a faculty director at McNair Institute for Enterprise, if I'm not mistaken. Might be the title, but certainly out and about in the community and teaching about entrepreneurship every day, which, I've learned, I've been so fortunate to partner with him, with Dirk. And I've learned so much. It's not every day that you get to partner, with your mentor. And Dirk was one of the first intros in 2015, where I realized that entrepreneurship is alive and well and thriving in South Carolina.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's great that you do have a partner that has experience in that space and obviously helps to really navigate through some of those things that other people just starting out on their own don't have a really good understanding or have resources to sort of give them some guidance on. So it's great that you have such a strong partner that understands what that's really like. I think one of the things that I'd kind of like to understand, I mean, again, just through the iterations of growing and different things that you've encountered. I mean, just kind of take me through a little bit, some of the phases of growth that you guys have had. Cause like I said, when we first met, you were really just getting started, very small operation, right? Small location. I know you moved locations later on, but there's just been, a lot of change and flexing. And I'm sure your processes have definitely mirrored a lot of that based on demand and how you can easily meet that and obviously service a much larger region than just say South Carolina now, right? You're saying Southeast Midwest. Kind of talk me through some of those changes, some of those growing, pains and things like that you've experienced kind of growing this business.
Oh gosh, you're taking me back, Adrian. This is a great question because when I first met you, because we do a handcrafted batch process. We utilized one machine. We had, I don't know if you remember this, Adrian. We had white chest freezers,
Yes.
and basically we had it was an F-250 pickup truck with a Kidron box on the back and a Thermo King compressor that really wasn't quite made for ice cream. It was made more for flowers, but we turned that thing down and run down the highway and get to the retailer as fast as we could. So those were the early days, which I kind of miss, quite frankly. Sometimes I miss it, because the value that you create amongst team members and getting, struggling well together are so empowering. But, we've gone from that, Adrian, that single truck to distribution partners on both coasts, multiple ice cream machines, freezer space in our facility that can hold up to 25 pallets of product. And it's just the lessons learned. There's been some very tough lessons along the way, but the lessons learned along the way are to surround yourself with the best people that you can, the A players that share your vision, recognizing that those folks are going to sacrifice for one another. So that growth and finding that right fit, whether it was personnel or capabilities, it's I think it's important to take your time. Now, I have not nailed this when it comes to people. We have amazing people, But finding the right, I would say it like this: it's making sure that you have people on the right seats on the right bus, if you will, and the faster you can do that, the better off you are long term.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, how many staff do you have now?
Gosh, when I met you, we had like 3.
Yeah.
Now we're up to, yeah, we're about 30. And then we have seasonal as well, where we have brand ambassadors that are in the field doing demos. So another 10 to 15 of those folks. And then, we rely very heavily on partnerships as well with our wholesale partners. Um, and then obviously, we've got our retail partners as well.
One thing I've noticed, and this is a testament to kind of how things have really changed, and obviously just from the time that we started discussing your business to now, I just see such a major shift. But I see a lot more marketing about proof is showing up in my feed in LinkedIn, and I'm seeing it on my regular social feed. So it's really awesome to see
Mm.
because the visibility is great. I see the coolers in areas that I go to as well that have your branding clearly on it. Talk to me a little bit about kind of getting to that point where it's really starting to create a lot of visibility and excitement just in the marketing side of it, because I know before it was a lot of, you were guys were trying to get out into the market space and prove out this proof of concept and then scale it, and then all of a sudden now I'm seeing it's much more visible that this brand exists, which is super exciting. But just kind of talk to me a little bit about that next phase of growth, right? Where the marketing really takes off and makes you more visible to the consumer market.
Well, that's a great question as well, and it's interesting. It's interesting, and your timing's perfect, because as we have scaled up, we have actually just recently hired a president and COO, a gentleman by the name of Russ Klein, and he was actually the global president for Burger King. Also had senior executive roles at Seven Up, Dr Pepper, and in other CPG areas. And he is helping us take that next step, and that goes back to the A players that we talk about. And along with Russ, we also hired a new agency. It's called Instigate. It's a marketing agency that has tremendous CPG experience, from Levi's to Diageo brands, and those folks are helping us take the next steps on exposure as well. But I'll tell you what's interesting. Oh, and then Rick Gillis. I'm sorry, I have to mention Rick while I have you, Adrian. He comes to us from the wholesaler space in California, and ran a $100 million company on the West Coast at one point in the alcohol distribution space. So having all these folks with experience that Dirk and I don't have, to help us take the next step has been incredibly important. And then just going back to, when you talk about marketing, there's also a very simple piece of this for us, which is just get a spoon in their mouth. And Adrian, you've had our product. It's there's really nothing else out there like it. And I've never had anybody say to me, I don't like that product. They might not like a flavor, but there's a flavor for everyone. So the conversion rate at our demos is astronomical, because of that taste profile. But marketing going forward is going to be the key to getting our name out there and getting awareness out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do agree. I mean, the product is unbelievable. Absolutely. I tell everybody about it. I think whenever we got together and you were sharing some of the tastings and stuff, and I brought one of my colleagues with me that day when we were talking about kind of where you were and where you were headed. And I think to this day, we, we both probably rub it into everybody else that we got to taste all of those flavors,
Yeah, no,
so everybody's
it's
jealous they didn't
amazing.
all get to go.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing. Kim Bowman, K Hope Creative, early days partner with her, they did a phenomenal job of creating that foundational base for us, right? But leaning into what I have learned as we've grown our opportunity is we really we owe it to ourselves, our team, and our investors, our investor base, to lean into people that have more CPG experience than Dirk or I do. And that's, it's a very nuanced space, and having that experience to lean into, I've certainly learned a lot over the last, 4 to 5 months that we brought these folks on board, and it's been very humbling to learn from them, because it's man, it's a dog eat dog world out in CPG space. It's amazing. It's very competitive, right?
Yeah, sure it is. Well, and I think one of the key things that really you're kind of speaking to too is, knowing that there's some things I don't know, right? So you're pulling in the right resources to learn from that. And they have very specific expertise in a space that, you recognize I don't know the ins and outs of this. And I think when I look at other small businesses that might be looking at a growth strategy is, recognize when you're starting to get outside your depth and pull upon, like you said, those resources that maybe have experience in a space that you're not familiar with, or maybe you're getting to a point that you really need to pull in the right people to ask those questions or find those mentors or advisors that can help you in a very specific area of your business that might just be beyond your previous expertise as well. I mean, always being willing to learn, I think, makes a huge difference, and not trying to do it all yourself. It's always a smart option, right? There's always things to learn.
Oh, yeah, and that's what I love about entrepreneurship. Like, that's what I love, and that's why I dug in so hard on this opportunity back in 2014. Um, One, because there was no market for this in 2014. Certainly not a retail commercial market. There was nothing out there. But then the opportunity to dig in and learn about regulations, what's barrier to entry, you know, GMPs, and in manufacturing, all those things. I'd love to learn. I love to be curious, right? So I think that's the hallmark, in my opinion, of any good entrepreneur.
Yeah, absolutely. And manufacturing is definitely it offers lots of life lessons, does it not?
Oh, oh my goodness, yes, it's very. I'll tell you what. Like a couple weeks ago, or maybe this was a month ago. I'll share this story. You'll laugh, but we had a compressor go down in our big freezer, in one of our big freezers, and there's a couple $100,000 of ice cream in there. You don't want to lose it, right? I mean,
Right.
so I get the call, and I'm like, I'm there. You just drop everything, go down, find solutions. And we found a solution that we have a freezer partner off campus, that, you know, off of the campus of Midlands Technical College, that we utilize, and we got it sorted out. But it is one of those, it's, it humbles you very quickly, manufacturing, in my opinion.
Yeah. Anything could go wrong at any time. It's all about preparedness and learning from your mistakes. I think that's probably anybody in any type of manufacturing will probably tell you that. I think it's just always preparing for anything that could possibly go wrong. And when it does, is taking that as a lesson and trying to prevent it from happening again. So I'm sure your compressor story, you're probably already thinking about how you can prevent that from happening again. But I'm glad you had a partner close by that could help you, because that's a lot of inventory if you were to lose it, right? I mean, that's a huge impact. So
It is. No, it really is. And yeah, it's definitely lesson learned, and paid for a second compressor. So if another one goes down, that won't happen again. We've got a second backup. But yeah, but we have a great team. I mean, I'm so grateful. And again, it's in those moments where everybody rolls up their sleeves. It doesn't matter if you're the CEO, the chairman, or the person making the ice cream. Everybody rolls their sleeves up, they jump in, and they solve the problem together. And that's what I think really bonds teams together so closely, is going through kind of going through those challenges together and coming out on the other side, maybe a little dirty and bruised, but still coming out okay, you know?
Oh, absolutely. And everybody seems to be, if they're all aligned around sort of the same values, like you said, everybody's pulling in the same direction and really wants to see the organization be successful. And that's such a critical component of any team. So it's great that you have that type of culture that you're able to preserve even as you're starting to expand and grow, when it's really, really small. Sometimes you feel like we've got a really good core group, but as you expand, obviously it presents some challenges, but it sounds like everybody's really clearly aligned around making the organization successful, whatever that takes, right? So pitching in where needed, and that's an awesome thing. That's always a challenge as you start to scale. So it's good that you guys have that.
100%. Yeah, no, that's we're very fortunate in that regard.
So tell me a little bit, just because I'm curious myself. It's been a while since you and I have chatted. I'm kind of curious what's next. So you're doing Southeast. There's Midwest. You've got some distribution partners because when we first started, obviously still really weren't in a great position there. So now you've really got some things stabilized. I mean, what's the plan? Where are you headed from here? Obviously, you're on a growth trajectory for sure. A lot of things have changed, and you've got some serious horsepower. It sounds like by bringing in some marketing resources and some folks from that segment of the business to really help you guys take it to the next level. I mean, what is it? It's your vision for proof in the future moving forward. What's on the horizon?
So, that's a great question. The first thing is as we scale up, operational excellence. So we've gone from 1 to 2 shifts now, and making sure in that transition of scalability that we have operational excellence across the board, obviously in manufacturing in particular. Right now we're in the Carolinas, North, South Carolina, Florida, California. We just opened up over the last couple months Missouri, Wisconsin, and Illinois. So getting, operational excellence on the logistics side, as getting logistics and production on the same page so that we're consistently shipping out product to these new retailers has been very important. We've got the largest retailer in the world with Walmart in Florida that is doing a phenomenal job with our product. And then, continue to expand out our footprint with, we have Lowe's Foods, Harris Teeter. We've got the main retail players in the Midwest in those 3 states that I just mentioned to you, and continuing to service our customers with the best quality product that we can turn out is our mission and our goal.
That's a lot of really big names most people would recognize. So again, that's really just goes to show that your product has a strong positioning in general. Just getting exposure in those retailers, and that's really awesome. What are some of the beyonds, like you said, logistics? I'd just be interested, kind of trying to transport ice cream. Just can't help but be curious. What are the challenges with trying to get ice cream from point A to point B? How does that even work? Because I'm trying to imagine trying to preserve the integrity of that, frozen good all the way. Is it freezer trucks trying to hustle down the interstate to get to your distributors? I mean, what does that really look like? Because it's a unique situation versus moving other types of consumer goods or even raw materials.
Yeah, so it's the frozen supply chain in my humble opinion is the most difficult logistics supply chain as far as it relates to consistency, particularly with partners. So in my dream world, we'd be -20 dock to dock, but what you want to avoid in ice cream is thermal cycling, whether it's our ice cream or just traditional ice cream. So, thermal cycling, where you take the temperature up and down multiple times, is what creates the ice crystals. And, Adrian, when you open up a pint of I mean, even Haagen-Dazs, right? You might see some bubbles around the top. I don't know if you've ever noticed that before,
Mhm.
but that's where thermal cycling comes in. So ideally, when it's coming out of our freezer at -20, it's going into a truck that is at least, a semi truck that's at least -15 to -20, then going into the partner for DSD, which is direct store delivery. It's going into their freezer at that same temperature or lower, and then the wholesale partner, what we call the DSD partner, makes the deliveries to individual locations going into our proof retail freezer at anywhere from -2 to 5, and then into the consumer's freezer after that. That's kind of the journey of the product, with the goal being to always, to always go down a few degrees and not up and down throughout the process, if that makes sense. That probably doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? But you don't want heavy thermal cycling on your product so that you can avoid the formation of some ice crystals on the top.
No, that makes a lot of sense, but it makes you appreciate how intricate that whole supply chain really is because of the product that you're moving, right? And there's multiple moves just to get it to the end consumer. It kind of makes you appreciate that it's a very delicate situation with the product that you're trying to transport, and then the different phases that it goes through. So that's really interesting. That's really didn't know a whole lot about that side of the business. So thank you for indulging me because I just try to picture how on
Absolutely.
earth you move that
It's no, it's very quickly. Very, very
as quickly
quickly.
as
Now,
possible.
the dream one day is to have our own frozen warehouse where, you have bay doors, and then, the semi is just backing up and it's going from -20 to -20, without any ambient air temperature. But we're not quite there yet, but we're getting closer every day.
It's going to be exciting to see how this continues to develop. Like I said, I reflect back on when we first met and we've stayed in contact. I've seen some of the changes that have happened, but even more recently, just the like I said, level of activity and marketing, seeing where you guys are in your distribution model. It's just really exciting to see that growth and scalability, and just can't help but be looking forward to the future and what's coming for you guys next. I guess just to kind of close this out, you know, when you think of all the other entrepreneurs and folks that are trying to even just in general start up small businesses, I mean, any nuggets of wisdom that you would share from your experience? I know we've talked about a couple of key things that you mentioned, but any advice you would give somebody else who's kind of looking at that daunting task of I'm starting something and I want to grow, but I just how do I get my arms around this? Any advice or words of wisdom you could share from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been kicked in the teeth so many times, right? I'm saying that, not literally, but it's just perseverance. It's be gritty enough to persevere. And I think perseverance is underestimated because there's so many days. Well, I'll just say this: it's interesting. When I talk to folks, when I lay down at night and lay my head down to go to sleep, I could be I always give thanks. There's always something to be grateful for. Some nights it's thank God my kids are healthy and we have a roof over our heads, right? It's sometimes just that simple. And then there's some nights where it's wow, thank God Walmart's rolling out another, 150 stores. So I think it's just always trying to find nuggets of joy in the journey when things are really hard, and then just really celebrating the small wins, which and I haven't done that as much as I should, quite frankly, and I've owned that with our team, to stay humble and just keep persevering, because tomorrow's a new day. It's having the opportunity to improve and be better every day is part of the joy that I find on the entrepreneurial journey. And I learn from our team every day. Be humble enough to take feedback, as hard as it is sometimes, and just keep putting one foot in front of the other. I know it sounds so basic, but it really is that simple. To me, is just keep persevering.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that kind of perspective. I know a lot of people do face a lot of challenges when it comes to especially trying to launch your own business. And I'm sure there's gonna be so many days that it feels like it's a fruitless pursuit. So I think hearing directly from somebody who's been successful and has faced a lot of challenges, hopefully that resonates with a lot of those folks to just keep on and put that behind them. And that was yesterday, and today's a new day. I think it's good to share that with folks and keep them driving towards their own personal goals. So I appreciate you doing that. I just personally want to thank you. It's been so much fun catching up with you, and glad to be able to share your story a little bit with some of our listeners. But thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me and talk a little bit more about Proof Ice Cream.
Adrienne, thank you so much. Again, it's very humbling to have this conversation. You have been amazing to me and our company, as well as SCMEP, and the entire state of South Carolina. We are so grateful to be located here, and we know it. So thank you.
I really appreciate that. That's truly humbling for me. It's our mission to help small to mid-sized manufacturers, especially. And you guys are definitely one of those folks that we want to see thrive and succeed and continue to grow. So thank you for that. That really means a lot. But it's been so much fun. We'll stay in touch, but thank you again. And we'll talk soon.
Please do. Adrienne, thank you so much. Have a wonderful week.
Thanks. You too.
Okay. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the 6 M's of Manufacturing podcast. Thanks to Jennifer Randall Collins for sharing the brand story of Proof Alcohol Ice Cream and a firsthand account of her own entrepreneurial journey into the retail food segment. Visit the episode notes for details and reference links to information shared during today's discussion. Did you enjoy this episode? That's awesome! Follow our podcast and share with your network. And remember, don't just make it better.